it was just incredible. It's just, chainmail sort of armory and, leather and, whatever these sorts of materials they used to build this thing. It was extremely heavy, but it sold such an image that, it made my job easier. I walked on set with Anthony Hopkins and we were both, dressed up, full gear, and looked at each other and shook our heads, and he just said, there's no acting required here, is there? I'll let this do the work. And, thankful for...
While you're doing Thor, were you getting updates about, hey, this is how it plays into Avengers?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, there wasn't a script back then, but I could sort of look at the comics and gather a bit of an idea of how it would roughly be assembled. But it wasn't a whole lot of, we're just so in the Thor world of it all, consumed by that. So.
Cool. Do you have any hints about the plot?
Yeah, I've got the script here. We can all read it afterwards.
Spoiler
It's
alert.
no, God, I'll have to. I couldn't say anything without being, kicked out of the film.
Raked over the coals.
Recast, yeah, unfortunately, but it's exciting and epic. Huge. Give us one words.
Print that.
Joss is fantastic. I worked with him on Cabin in the Woods that he wrote and produced with Drew Goddard. And way back when I was shooting Cabin in the Woods was the casting for Thor, the process was happening, and he said, why aren't you involved in this? I said, I was early, and then I'd sort of been in and out of it, and I don't know what's going on. And he said, I'll give Ken a call. And called Ken Branagh. They didn't know each other, but knew of each other. And just said, look, for what it's worth, I'm working with Chris, and he's a good bloke, and gave me some props, and that I think helped sort of get me back in there. And but he was just amazing. He's a fanboy, definitely, and knows the comics back to front, and is a true sort of fan of it all. And that's the best people to work with, because they're the most open and intelligent sort of resource you can have. So having him, not only directing it but writing it as well is as foolproof as you could get, I think. So it's great.
Excellent. We've been hearing about Cabin in the Woods for a while. Tell us about the movie and your role in it.
It's sort of I heard someone say the Truman Show meets Night of the Living Dead, which is an interesting thing to mash together. But it's a thriller horror film with some great humour and very intelligent in the vein that Joss is and Drew. It's one of those secretive things that I can't say too much about again. But I did two films, MGM with MGM, Red Dawn and Cabin in the Woods, and there's some changing of hands going on within the company. So those films will come out eventually. I've been told later this year, unofficially, but fingers crossed that happens.
Maybe you can't say too much about this, but how does Red Dawn kind of compare to the story of the original?
Well, it follows the premise, obviously, very closely. It probably gets into the characters a little more and sort of their personal sort of struggle and the way they kind of band together. And that was, for us was what it was about. It was a group of young kids kind of being thrown together and without their parents and having to sort of fight back against something and fight for their survival. And it felt like school camp shooting that film. It was literally a bunch of young guys and girls sent to another city and minus our parents. I haven't lived with my parents for a long time, so it wasn't that bad for me. But and it was a lot of fun. We had all sorts of weapons and things, and trained in some military guys and
no parents and a bunch of weapons. Sounds awesome.
That's right. Yeah, good combination.
Let's start with questions. Great.
LA and got a phone call one Friday afternoon and said, "Quick, drop everything, drive into Paramount and meet with JJ Abrams." And I sat at his desk and read the scene because it was all very secretive. And he said, "Great, you start on Monday." And then I was like, "Well, on this film?" He said, "Yeah, that's it." And that was it. And I was very lucky to be, working with someone like him. And he put together such an amazing thing. So, but thank you very much.
Great, in the green.
And also, will you be reprising your role in the sequel to Adventures in Babysitting?
Adventures in Babysitting, hopefully, yeah. That's a separate contract.